Top 10 Fascinating Facts About the Demoniac in the Synagogue. Discover in our video how a single act of divine authority in Capernaum catapulted Jesus into the spotlight and challenged the conceptions of the sacred. We explore 10 astonishing facts about this miracle that not only amazed a synagogue but also marked the beginning of a new era. Number 10. Location of the synagogue. The Synagogue of Capernaum, a central site in the community life of the time, served as the setting for one of Jesus' most significant miracles. Located in what is now northern Israel, this synagogue was not only a place for prayer and Torah study but also a social and judicial gathering center for the local community. Although the original structure from Jesus' time has not survived, archaeological excavations have revealed the foundations of a later synagogue built on the same site, suggesting that the location continued to be an important point of religious and social gathering long after the events described in the Gospels. The remains of this later synagogue, dated to the 4th century, show impressive architecture with white stone columns and detailed decorations, indicating the community's prosperity in later times. This archaeological discovery provides a tangible connection to the biblical past and helps to imagine the environment in which Jesus conducted his teachings and miracles. The ongoing interest in this site by researchers and pilgrims reflects the profound historical and spiritual influence of the Capernaum synagogue. The excavations have not only offered a window to the past but have also strengthened the connection between religious traditions and historical evidence of Jesus' ministry in this region. Number 9. The reaction of the crowd. The expulsion of the unclean spirit by Jesus in the Synagogue of Capernaum left the crowd deeply amazed and confused about the authority with which Jesus performed such acts. Witnesses to the miracle not only saw an exorcism but also experienced a teaching with a power and authority that sharply contrasted with what they were accustomed to. This combination of teaching and miraculous power had a significant impact among the attendees, who began to question and discuss what it meant to have such authority. The surprise and wonder of the crowd spread quickly beyond the synagogue walls. Jesus' fame began to grow exponentially throughout the region of Galilee as a result of this event. People who had witnessed the exorcism shared what they had seen and heard, spreading the news of a prophet with extraordinary power to nearby villages and towns. This miracle was not only a turning point for the public perception of Jesus but also marked the beginning of his ministry in Galilee. His ability to attract large crowds became a constant feature of his ministry, and events like this were key in establishing his reputation as a divine teacher and healer whose authority was evident in both his words and deeds. Number 9. The reaction of the crowd. The expulsion of the unclean spirit by Jesus in the Synagogue of Capernaum left the crowd deeply amazed and confused about the authority with which Jesus performed such acts. Witnesses to the miracle not only saw an exorcism but also experienced a teaching with a power and authority that sharply contrasted with what they were accustomed to. This combination of teaching and miraculous power had a significant impact among the attendees, who began to question and discuss what it meant to have such authority. The surprise and wonder of the crowd spread quickly beyond the synagogue walls. Jesus' fame began to grow exponentially throughout the region of Galilee as a result of this event. People who had witnessed the exorcism shared what they had seen and heard, spreading the news of a prophet with extraordinary power to nearby villages and towns. This miracle was not only a turning point for the public perception of Jesus but also marked the beginning of his ministry in Galilee. His ability to attract large crowds became a constant feature of his ministry, and events like this were key in establishing his reputation as a divine teacher and healer whose authority was evident in both his words and deeds. Number 7. Jesus' teaching. Before the dramatic exorcism in the synagogue, Jesus was teaching the congregants, a regular practice in his ministry, but which in this context set the stage for what would follow. His teaching not only captured attention for its content but also for the manner in which it was delivered, marked by an innate authority that differentiated his words from those of the scribes and other teachers of the law. This power and authority in his discourse prepared the audience to receive the miracle that was about to occur with greater impact. The incident of the exorcism immediately after his teaching served to reinforce his words, merging his doctrine with palpable demonstrations of divine power. This not only solidified his reputation as an authorized teacher but also underscored the relevance and urgency of his message about the kingdom of God. Jesus' teaching was not just about interpreting the scriptures but about acting according to them, showing his audience that God's words have the power to change both physical and spiritual reality. This integrated approach of word and deed provoked an immediate and often astonishing reaction among his listeners, who were not used to such dynamism in religious teaching. Jesus used every opportunity, like the exorcism, to teach not only through speeches but also through actions that directly exemplified the principles of the kingdom of God, establishing a model of active and compassionate spiritual leadership. Number 6. The demon's proclamation. At the moment of the exorcism in the Synagogue of Capernaum, the unclean spirit identified Jesus as the Holy One of God, a surprising and revealing acknowledgement. This declaration is significant because it came from an unexpected source, an evil spirit, which despite its nature recognized the divine and holy identity of Jesus. Such recognition suggests a spiritual perception that even some followers of Jesus took longer to fully understand and accept. The demon's proclamation acts as an involuntary testimony to the messianic mission of Jesus, contrasting the spiritual perception of supernatural beings with the often limited understanding of humans. This incident not only underscores Jesus' spiritual authority over evil spirits but also highlights the irony that demonic beings recognized what many humans still could not see: the true nature and purpose of Jesus as the Messiah sent by God. This spectral recognition in the Gospels reinforces the theme of spiritual struggle that is central to Jesus' teaching and ministry. Being identified in this way by an unclean spirit reaffirms his role as the central figure in the fight against evil and the bearer of redemption for humanity, a theme that would resonate deeply in the New Testament narrative and subsequent Christian theology. Number 5. The religious context. The miracle of the exorcism took place on a Sabbath day, which adds an additional dimension to the event due to the strict Sabbath laws that regulated activities allowed on this sacred day. The Sabbath, or Shabbat, is a day of rest and worship in Jewish tradition, during which any work, including many forms of physical healing according to the strictest interpretations of Mosaic law, is prohibited. However, Jesus frequently challenged these interpretations to highlight a deeper message of mercy and compassion. By performing an exorcism on the Sabbath, Jesus not only demonstrated his power over evil spirits but also challenged the established religious norms that prioritized the law over human welfare. This act was an example of how his teachings often accompanied actions that questioned the practices and understandings of the time. For Jesus, the urgency of freeing a man from demonic oppression outweighed Sabbath restrictions, emphasizing that the purpose of the Sabbath was benefit and liberation, not restriction and suffering. This provocative approach not only showcased his power and authority but also set a precedent for what he considered the heart of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. His actions not only fulfilled messianic prophecies but also invited people to reflect on the true meaning and purpose of God's law, fostering a more compassionate and merciful understanding of it. Number 4. Impact on the synagogue. This miracle performed by Jesus in the Synagogue of Capernaum was not just a spectacle for those present but also served to cement his reputation as an extraordinary teacher and healer. By choosing the synagogue, a central place for teaching and religious life in the Jewish community, as the stage for this powerful act, Jesus effectively established his authority in a space traditionally reserved for established religious leaders. This not only challenged the norm but also demonstrated his mastery and power over both the spiritual and the physical, clearly differentiating him from other teachers of the law. The miracle also had a significant impact on how people viewed the function of the synagogue. It was no longer just a place of learning and prayer, but also a space where divine power could manifest through Jesus. This expanded the community's understanding of what was possible within the confines of their religious and cultural space, inviting them to see the synagogue as a place where teaching could be accompanied by miraculous acts that confirmed the teacher's message. Jesus' ability to perform such miracles in the synagogue also marked the beginning of his ministry in Galilee, where his fame as a teacher and healer grew exponentially. This event was fundamental in attracting followers who were eager to hear his teachings and witness more miracles, solidifying his status as a central figure in the region and an agent of change within the Jewish community of that time. Number 3. The opposition. Although Jesus' miracles attracted followers and solidified his reputation as a powerful spiritual leader, they also generated skepticism and opposition, particularly from those in positions of religious and social power. Jesus' ability to expel demons and challenge conventional interpretations of the law not only amazed ordinary people but also disturbed religious leaders, who saw him as a threat to their authority and the status quo. This opposition was not simply due to the healing acts themselves but to the way Jesus integrated them with teachings that often questioned traditions and the rigidity of Jewish law. For example, his choice to perform miracles on the Sabbath, and his open discussion of theological and social issues, directly challenged established norms and exposed the limitations of prevailing religious interpretations at the time. The conflict between Jesus and the religious authorities was, therefore, both theological and practical. His actions were seen not just as a challenge to the authority of religious leaders but also as a new interpretation of Jewish faith, one that emphasized mercy and justice over strict adherence to tradition. This tension eventually became one of the central threads of his ministry and played a crucial role in the events that led to his arrest and final trial. Number 2. The significance of the miracle. The expulsion of the unclean spirit by Jesus in the synagogue of Capernaum was much more than a simple act of healing. It symbolized the eruption of the kingdom of God into the world. This miracle not only cleansed the possessed man from evil influence but also served as a tangible sign that the power of God was operative and present in Jesus. Such miracles demonstrated that evil and spiritual oppression would be confronted and decisively defeated. This event, occurring in a central religious space like the synagogue and in the context of the Sabbath, underlined Jesus' claim that his mission brought a new way of understanding and living God's law. Through his ministry, Jesus not only sought to heal physical and spiritual ailments but also to restore relationships between God and humanity, and among individuals within the community. This was reflected in his compassionate approach and his willingness to interact with those marginalized by society, including those possessed by demons. Therefore, each miracle, especially those performed in sacred spaces and on sacred days, became a powerful statement about the nature of divine power and the arrival of the kingdom of God. These acts not only restored physical and spiritual order in the lives of individuals but also challenged the community to reconsider their conceptions of holiness, purity, and religion. Number 1. Jesus' authority over unclean spirits. The episode of the exorcism in the synagogue of Capernaum is particularly significant for how it establishes Jesus' supreme authority over the spiritual realm. By commanding the unclean spirit to leave the man and being obeyed immediately, Jesus not only showed his mastery over demons but also demonstrated that his power was unmatched. This fact not only impressed those who witnessed the event but also provided concrete proof that Jesus possessed an authority that went beyond the earthly. It was an authority granted directly by God. The significance of this miracle is reflected in the reaction of the crowd and how the event accelerated the spread of Jesus' fame throughout the region. By having control over unclean spirits, Jesus confirmed his role as the promised Messiah, one who had the power not only to teach and heal but also to purify and liberate humanity from the influence of evil. This ability to expel demons was a direct manifestation of the arrival of the kingdom of God, a central theme in his teaching. This act, therefore, was not just an isolated miracle. It was an integral part of Jesus' redemptive mission, demonstrating that his coming marked the beginning of a new era in which the power of God would manifest directly to confront and defeat evil in all its forms. By doing so in such a public and sacred context as the synagogue, Jesus not only challenged conventional expectations of the divine but also redefined the nature of spiritual power and its impact on the daily lives of people.